Welcome once again to my YouTube channel. Okay, in this video we are going to be looking at inventory valuation for grade 12. This is a topic for grade 12, a question for grade 12. Okay, inventory valuation and internal control. This is a question that was adapted from the question paper February-March 2018. Okay, SASA traders are provided with information relating to SASA traders. The business sells one type of plastic table. Their financial year ends on 31 December. The business uses the FIFO method to value stock. They use the periodic inventory system. Okay, what are the requirements? Number 1.1.1, calculate the value of the closing stock according to the FIFO method. And we are also required to calculate the cost of sales, the gross profit. And also, we are going to look at 1.1.3, whereby they say the owner considers changing the stock valuation method to the weighted average method. Calculate the value of the closing stock on 31 December 2020 by using the weighted average method. Okay, so we are given information A and information B, and we are also given information C. Okay, information A, these are balances, the opening balance and the closing balance. On B, we have got the purchases and returns, and information C, we have got the sales. Okay. All right, so we are going to start with 1.1.1. Calculate the value of the closing stock according to the FIFO method. Okay, what you need to understand is that when we are calculating our closing stock using the FIFO method, the stock that is most likely to be part of the closing stock is the one that was purchased last. So when we look at the purchases that took place from March up to November, what is most likely to be part of the closing stock is the stock that is in the last month of purchase. Why? Because first in, first out implies that the first stock that was purchased was always the first one to be sold, and the stock that is most likely to remain unsold is the one that was purchased last. So when we are looking at the FIFO method and we want to calculate the closing stock, we start by looking at the stock at the bottom going upwards. Okay, so if we look at the inventory that is on hand, 31 December 2020, number of units 440 units. Okay, the value is what we want to calculate. Okay, so we are going to go to the month of November. In the month of November, if you look at the month of November, we have got how many items? 300 items. How many items do we want to make? 440. So this is what we'll simply do. We are going to take all the items in the month of November, the 300 items, and then we multiply by the cost per unit. And also at the same time, if you look at our table, we also have got the carriages per unit. We are also going to include the money for the carriages. Okay, so let me do my calculation on this answer book, on this answer template. Okay, we are going to start by saying, okay, the November, I'll indicate November. From the month of November, I'm going to take 300 units. Okay, the 300 units times how much is the unit price? The unit price is 400, and then we are also going to add the money for the carriage per unit plus 30 rand. So it's going to be 430. Okay, so it's 300 units times 430. Okay, we take all the units that are in the month of November. But remember, we want to make how many units? 440 units. So from 440 units, if we minus 300 units, we are going to remain with something like 140 units. 140. 440 minus 300 is 140. So the remaining items to make 440 is 140. Okay, so when we go to our table, okay, we have taken everything from the month of November. So we go to the month that is before November, that is September. We are going to take 140 there. Okay, so the 140 units we are going to take, they are at a price per unit of 350. And there is also a carriage of 25 rand per unit. So we're going to say 40 multiplied by, how much is it? It's per unit Okay, per unit is 350. 350. We are going to add the carriage of 25 rand. Okay, so it means it's going to be 375. Okay, so 140 times 375. Okay, let's put the answers for the first part. The 300 times 430, let me check on my calculator, is going to give us 129,000. 129,000. And then 140 times 375, that is going to be 52,500, which is going to be 52,500. Okay, now we add the two amounts. Okay, it will give us a total of 181,500. Therefore, our closing stock is 181,500. Okay, we are done with the calculation of closing stock. Remember, every time when you are using the FIFO method, when you look at the purchases, you look at the last purchase. When you want to calculate the closing stock, you start from the month that was the purchased last, going upwards until you meet the number that you want to make the closing stock. Okay, we are done with 1.1.1. Let's now move on to 1.1.2. Calculate the cost of sales. Okay, we need to calculate the cost of sales. How do we calculate the cost of sales? I'm going to start by indicating the formula. Okay, the formula is opening stock plus purchases plus, if carriage, we have got carriages plus carriages, and then minus returns, also minus the closing stock, is equal to cost of sales. So this is our formula: opening stock plus purchases plus carriages minus returns minus closing stock is equal to cost of sales. Okay, now let's substitute. Our opening stock is 189,000. 189,000, that's the opening stock, plus the purchases. The purchases are given, the purchases, okay, let's go to the information that is given. The opening stock is 189,000, okay, and then the purchases, the total for the purchases is 840,500. 840,500. And then we also add the carriages. The carriages are given at 58,100. 58,100. Okay, what else do we have? We've got the returns. Okay, if you go to the returns here, we've got 50 units that were returned, and then the total amount is 19,000 minus 19,000. Okay, and then we also have minus closing stock, which we calculated here. We are going to say minus 181,500 from the closing stock. Okay, so this calculation is actually supposed to give us the cost of sales. So when we calculate everything, we are going to remain with an amount of 887,100. 887,100 is our cost of sales. 887,100. Once we have got the cost of sales, it's now going to be very easy for us to calculate the gross profit. Remember, the formula for calculating gross profit is sales minus cost of sales. It will give us the gross profit. Okay, is equal to gross profit. Okay, so then we have got the sales. They are given on C, 2,300 units at 600 each, which is equal to 1,380,000. So we're going to take the 1,380,000 minus the cost of sales that we calculated here, 887,100. It's going to give us the gross profit. The gross profit is going to be 492,900. 492,900. That is our gross profit. Okay, so we are done with 1.1.1 and 1.1.2. So you can see that failure to get the right closing stock will also affect our cost of sales. It's also going to affect our gross profit. So it's very, very much important that you do proper calculations from the beginning up to the end. Okay, so we are done with FIFO, calculating the closing stock. We're using the FIFO method and also calculating the cost of sales and the gross profit. Now let's move on to 1.1.3. Calculate the value of the closing stock on 31 December 2020 by using the weighted average method. Okay, the weighted average method, there is also a formula that is used. Okay, the formula for calculating using the weighted average method. Okay, we say opening stock also plus the purchases plus the carriages, and we also say minus the returns. Okay, and then we divide by the number of units, available, and then we multiply by the number of items on hand. We multiply by the units on hand. So this is the formula using the weighted average method. Okay, above we are actually looking at the value of all the stock that is available divided by the number of units that are available. Okay, so now we can substitute once again the opening stock. Okay, we say the opening stock 189,000. We say plus the purchases 840,500, and then we also say plus the carriages 58,100, and then we are also going to say minus 19,000. Okay, and then we are going to divide everything by the number of units. How many units at the opening stock? We can go back to the question. How many units did we have? We had 540. So we're going to say 540 plus 540, the purchases, the number of purchases, the purchases that are there, the number of units that were the number of units that were purchased. They are 2,250 plus 2,250, and then we subtract the returns. How many items were returned? There were 50 items that were returned. Okay, so when we do that calculation, we are going to multiply by 440. 440 is the items that are on hand. Okay, times 440. Okay, so when we do this calculation, we are going to get an average price of 390. When we say what is below here, we divide it into what is above. We get 390 per unit. And then now we multiply by the 440 items, which is going to give us an amount of 171,600. 171,600. Okay, so using the weighted average method, above on top, you put the values of all the stock that is available, and then below you put the number of items that are available, and then you multiply by the number of units that are on hand. Okay, so when we divide here, the weighted average price is 390. We say 390 times 440, we get 171,600. Okay, so this is how we calculate the value of closing stock using the weighted average method. What will be the effect on the gross profit if the owner changes to this valuation method? So if the owner changes from the FIFO method to the weighted average method, what is going to happen? The gross profit is going to decrease. The gross profit will decrease. Okay, the gross profit will decrease. Okay, will decrease by you look at the difference between the two the two closing stocks that we calculated, the 181,500 and the 171,600. Okay, to show the decrease that is going to take place there. Okay, it's 181,500 minus 171,600 is equal to give us something like 9,900. So the gross profit, Okay, so what it simply means is that the bigger the closing stock, the smaller the cost of sales. So here we have got a bigger closing stock, which means the cost of sales are smaller, and then it means that the gross profit will be bigger. Here the